Now it's my privilege to introduce our guest, Congressman Neal Dunn. He's been representing District 2 now, going on 5 years, 6 years, sir? And representing geographically one of the largest congressional districts, if not the largest, right, from Panama City down to Ocala. So you have a diversity of different kinds of constituents, from peanut farmers down and horse farms right up to whatever Panama City's doing these days, right? Right. We'll take it. And instead of reading you his bio, I just wanted to share one of the things that spoke out to me is I don't see the congressman as a career politician. You know, politicians have a role, but not a career politician. What makes me proud to have him as my congressman is the prestigious background he has as a healer, as a physician, especially as a prostate cancer survivor myself. If you look at his bio, he's led the field in many ways of helping not just cancer survivors such as myself or in the treating, but really putting a stamp here in North Florida on the medical side in the industry as a physician. And I think having a physician that's up there in DC and all the wackiness that is Congress is reassuring to me, because Congressman Dunn does not play politics with policy. I never see you in any type of news coverage or even fringe type of media where the congressman is in there just trying to be seen and be heard. When he speaks, he's talking about things that are important to us in District 2. And so it's my privilege to introduce Congressman Neal Dunn of District 2. Thank you, sir.
I have to say thank you, Patrick. That was one of the kindest introductions I've had in 6 years in this office. You know, people are always saying, "Why don't you get up to the microphone more?" And I say, "I don't want to be like them." No, you do try to bring some thought to the whole process. It's really great to be back here. I mean, I'd forgotten how long it had been since we'd gotten together. It's been over 2 years, obviously, and really a great group, a great gathering, a great group of people to talk to. And I love talking to a group like this because you not only care about business, you care about your community, and you care about good government. So just an outstanding group of people to talk to, and a real honor to be with you. I'll tell you a little bit about me. He mentioned I'm a doctor. I started out in the Army, actually, as a urologist surgeon, and I was part of the peace dividend. Berlin Wall fell down, and we had peace. Remember those lovely times of peace where you had no wars? 5 months. That's how long the peace dividend lasted. And then we were on line in Kuwait, and I was in Panama City. So I came to Florida, and I started a urology practice here. And gradually over the years, we built that up. And I think you'll like this story. I built it up so it actually ended up being the largest urology practice in the world, and so it treated a lot of prostate cancer, which was my special niche. And so I really love your story, Patrick. You know, because we've come a long ways with that particular disease. I could bore you all day long with facts about prostate cancer. I won't do that, but it was that was very rewarding to me to be working in that field. I started a few other companies as well, and at one point was actually employing over 1,000 people. So what I want you to think about me as one of you, not as a politician, not a government functionary. But somebody like you who understands that government can actually be an obstacle to business. Sometimes we're just a little heavy-handed, at least a little heavy-handed. So. About the district, you mentioned it. It starts in Ocala, it goes north to Lake City and west past Panama City Beach, 19 counties. It's the largest geographic district east of the Mississippi River. And so we got a lot of tourism, a lot of state government, a lot of military, but the number one economic driver of these 19 counties is agriculture. So we have a whole lot of great farmers and ranchers and foresters in the group. In Washington, I sit on the Energy and Commerce Committee. That's the oldest standing committee in Congress and has the broadest authority. So we'll oversee energy policy, environmental policy, foreign and domestic trade policy, healthcare policy, telecom policy, spectrum. It goes on and on. So it's a busy committee. I also represent that committee to the China Task Force. The China Task Force is very topical. We're trying to repatriate the supply chains from China to the free world. Now, you'd say, why not just to America? Well, America doesn't have the capacity to manufacture, produce, and handle everything we buy and need. And by the way, the free world should be part of the equation. That means we're going to have to change the way we actually trade with our free world partners as well as what we do here at home. That's my remit in Congress. I do one other thing, and that is I sit on the Parliament of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Well, I can tell you that got really busy in the last year with the Ukraine war. We spent a lot of time on Ukraine every day of the week, and just a heroic defense of not only their own country, but frankly, the entire West. And they have pulled off something that nobody thought they could do. And they deserve our help. They deserve more of our help than they're getting. But we're working on that. In fact, I'll be going back to Eastern Europe in the next couple of weeks. So more on Ukraine. And by the way, at the end of this, I'm going to try to stay in your wheelhouse in the business world when I talk here today. But at the end, I have some time for your comments, your questions. And every topic is fair game. Nothing's off the table. I just can't talk about everything. There's too many crises to talk about. So it's been a tough year for America. It's been a tough year for the whole world. Obviously, inflation is at a 40-year high. I see a few people here with enough gray hair to remember when it was this bad. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And I know that inflation impacts your businesses in ways that most people don't even think about. Gas prices, energy prices affect products, supplies, distribution, services, and your workforce. So you have people working for you probably are struggling with whether they're putting food on the table or gas in the car. And, that kind of energy inflation on top of across the board inflation, that's tough on every part of society. And while I'd like to be optimistic, I'm naturally an optimist, I do not think we've seen the worst of this yet. In Washington, I think it's popular to try to blame all this inflation on Putin. The ugly truth is that this started long before he invaded Ukraine. This is due to our own choices. It's true here, and it's true in Europe as well. So the whole free world got into this thing together. With out of control government spending and reliance on energy from our enemies. So we make fun of Europe for getting 46% of their energy from Russia, 46%. But we spend $65 million a day buying Russian oil and gas in America 7 days a week, every day. So, it's not just Europe that's making these mistakes. They are, of course, much more dependent than we were. Everybody here is old enough to remember when we were energy independent 1.5 years ago. Europe never came close. And that's all about choices you make on how you're going to turn on the lights. Washington used the COVID-19 pandemic to go on a spending spree, the likes of which the world has never seen. Trillions with a T. I couldn't believe it when I got to Washington. Billions were a lot of money. Now trillions are toss it off. And the solutions that I hear routinely in Washington are more government spending. You can't increase the money supply. The M2, by the way, is up 40% in 2 years. So you can't increase money chasing fewer goods and not see inflation. Ipso facto, it's absolutely there. Now, there are solutions we can do, we know these solutions. We actually saw them in the last administration. One of the simplest, quickest is deregulation, right? Remember when we used to have a bounty, as it were, on regulations. You can speed up industry. Operation Warp Speed was a good indication of how to do that. We got vaccines and therapeutics in record time. That was a great way to reduce the regulatory burden. Imagine if your companies had that kind of regulatory environment, what you could do. I think there's a lot of tailwind there that we could all benefit from. Now, there were some failings in the and the Operation Warp Speed program and some of the others. They had Skunk Works, they called it. But we can get into that if it interests you. Government is often standing in the way of adopting new innovative technologies, things that sometimes they just make your business run better, other times it's a quantum leap in the whole market. So it changes what we're interested in and how we really approach life. You can think of our cell phones. So, things like that really change. So we can either boost the economy by getting out of your way in a reasonable way, or we can get on your back and slow things down. I think everybody in this room is fortunate to be, anybody here from Georgia? We're mostly from Florida, right? We love Florida, my God. This state is just about the most friendly business state in the country. It's certainly the freest state in the country. And I think that's a trend over time, but it's punctuated right now with an outstanding administration and frankly, a well-run legislature. So we are fortunate citizens indeed. Paired with rising inflation, however, businesses are still finding it harder to keep their doors open, even in Florida. Although we have, let's face it, probably the best in-migration in the country right here. What I want to do today is to encourage you, to empower you, to educate Washington and all the levels of government, local, state. You're doing pretty well with the local and state. You need to work on Washington a little bit more, because this is important. There's many of my colleagues on the Hill actually have some business experience, but they don't have firsthand experience in your industry. They don't know what your problems are, and you need to share that with them. You can't just expect that they know what's going on up there, because I tell you, finding the truth inside the Beltway is like the worst Easter egg hunt you've ever been on in your life. And you can't find anything for the noise. The truth may be there, but it's hidden very cleverly in the noise. And when you're up and going to educate anybody, whether they're congressman or your local government or your kids, who do you trust? You trust the people you have a relationship with. The old saying is, make your friends before you need them. Well, it won't surprise you to hear that a lot of people come to Washington and they don't tell us the truth. They mislead us. They spin the truth. So we need honest input. We need relationships with people who are going to, you can come to trust them over time. And those are the voices that actually get things done in Washington. And I'm sure that the same thing is true in Tallahassee, and the same thing is true in Leon County. I mean, at every level, relationships matter. And those are things that we need to build on. And I have the people I know and trust. And when I have questions in industry, I try to find somebody I know and I trust in that industry and say, explain this to me, what the heck? And we had the wildfires a month ago hit Bay County, Gulf County, Calhoun, Liberty. And that's just debris we have not yet picked up after Hurricane Michael. So I called some people I know in the disaster relief business. I said, you need to come over and talk to me, because it's not that there isn't enough money appropriated. We got a lot of money appropriated and unspent, but we still have debris on the ground. So tomorrow morning, we're going to have a meeting with disaster relief people who make a living in disaster relief, and they're going to try to tell me what we need to do to get FEMA to move off the button, and let's see if we can get this debris picked up once and for all. The private foresters, they did well. The state forest, not so well. The national forest, horribly. And those little forests in between our homes that are privately owned, that's a disaster waiting to happen. So, you may feel like Washington's not listening to anyone, but I promise you they're listening to someone. The question is it you? If you expect government to get the decisions right at any level of government, local, state, federal, you owe it to yourself to come tell us what you know about your industry, what's going on with your economics. What do you see? What's the problems that you face on a daily basis? So that would be the message I want to leave with you, is we're not, there isn't some book up there that everybody knows and reads and has the same facts. That's just not the situation. We need your input, and we need it all the time. Before I turn this over to the comments and your questions, I'm going to ask you a question. And this is a question I bet you everybody here has asked themselves at one time or another. Is it worth your time, your frustration, your expense to try to guide your government to doing the right thing? And I know it's frustrating because I was a citizen just like you, and I tried to educate him on medicine. Let me tell you how I answer this question to myself. I have a chance now. I spend a lot of time talking to people all over the world, a lot of parliamentarians, ministers, foreign ministers, prime ministers, large countries, small countries, nuclear powers, small muddy backwaters that are scraping to get by. And what I found is there's about 100 countries in the world that are straddling the fence right now. They don't know whether they want to be democracies that respect human rights, rule of law, or autocracies, oligarchies, dictatorships. So they're watching America intently. They want to see if we're going to be able to hold on to this experiment in liberty that we call America. Because if we can't do it, they are not even going to try. They know something that Abraham Lincoln said best. America is the last best hope of Earth. The New York Times may not know that, but most of the world knows it for a fact. And we have to remember that if we don't save it here, there's no place your kids, your grandkids can go. This is it. You can't run that far. So I have grandkids, and I would cheerfully die to give them the chance to grow up in the America I grew up in. So it's worth it to me to spend the time and effort to try to educate people in Washington. And I submit it's worth it to you too. Patrick, would you? Thank you.
I'm going to do one little housekeeping, and then the floor is yours, Congressman. I would agree with everything the Congressman said, but I would also extend it. During COVID, I really think in our country, Florida was the last bastion of freedom for a period of time. And so I remember traveling all around the country and going to other states. Where are you from? I'd say from the free state of Florida.
I say, oh, you're so lucky.
Yeah, it's like you got a great governor down there. And this is not, I don't think this is a partisan type of conversation. It's really the reality we're faced with. And so I got a couple questions I'll kick off for you, Congressman, and then just one housekeeping. Only members get to ask the questions. All right, so we'll open it up. But my first question for you, Congressman, is elections. A political question that's twofold. How is Biden helping the Republicans regain the majority? And tell us about the redistricting that's happening currently in the special session. How is that potentially going to affect your representative district?
Thanks so much, Patrick. So election integrity is a big deal on everybody's radar. Some parts of the country, it's the number one thing. Other parts of the country, it's education, and are the parents going to be allowed to say something about the curriculum? It varies where you are in the country, but everybody cares at some level or another about election integrity. And we're seeing a number of states take steps that, like Florida took. Everybody here remembers 1990, right? I mean, my God, right? So it wasn't 90, it was 2000, Chads and all that. We cleaned up Florida. Florida now can report at the end of the night, we actually know who won Florida. It's done, and there's no controversy. And that's because we cleaned up our elections. And there are other states that need to do the same thing. And we should not get in the way of them doing that. It's a normal process. So that's on the election integrity issue. Is that an issue for us here in Florida? I don't think it's on anybody's radar here in Florida right now. So that's good. I have to go aside. This story you said about our governor. I was giving a speech in Houston to the Petroleum Club. This is not a humble bunch of guys, right? The Petroleum Club. And I get there, and the first thing they said is, oh, yeah, you guys got a great governor. We got the second best governor. And I'm saying, I can't believe these Texans are saying they're second best. I was stunned. So what about the districting here? Well, district maps, including congressional district maps, not just the House, State House, and State Senate, but the U.S. congressional district maps are entirely decided in Tallahassee. So that's by the state legislature, which is how the Constitution designed it. So I have zero input on this. I'm obviously following the controversy with at least as much interest as you are, but and it. I've seen 8 or 10 different maps. Right now, the governor seems to have the upper hand, and so it will, in fact, change the shape of my district, probably more than, with the obvious exception of Al Lawson's district, District 5, the other district here in Tallahassee. Tallahassee's divided up between me and him. So his would actually kind of go away or be added partly to my district, partly to Rutherford's, partly to Ket-Cammack's. So other than his district, I get the biggest change because I would actually lose several counties down on the south end, even out to Columbia. So it would change enormously who I'm representing. I would also have to shift farther west because there's more people here. Why are there more people here? That goes back to what we're saying about Florida. So many people are coming to Florida. The population skyrocketed. We probably should have gotten 2 new seats in Florida. We only got 1. I would blame that on the hurricane because the hurricane displaced people just in time for the census. They're back now. So the population didn't really fall in Panama City. It just was gone for, a year and a half. But we're working on a census that had data from that period of time when they were absent. So I expect, again, we'll gain seats next time we play this game. But it would change, but it would change it in such a way that likely I would end up with all of Leon County, all of Gadsden County. Yes, it would go farther east as well, out to Suwannee certainly, maybe beyond there, but then back to the west. So that's how it affects me.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, sir, in the green.
Please wait.
It's good to see so many familiar faces here. I really like that.
I'm going to be political for just a second.
You're going to be correct?
Maybe not correct, but Joe Biden, there's a lot of questions for a lot of people about his mental acuity, and I don't know anybody who's confident that he could rule for 6 more years. But if he's not leading the White House, or is he leading the White House, and if not, who is leading policy and leading the White House is one question. And then the second thing is are we about to see a showdown between DeSantis and Trump in the next couple of years?
So easier question, the first one, and still not something I don't have special insight on who's running the White House. Believe me, they don't let us over there anymore. Last time I was there was, about 18 months ago. But, I think a lot of the world, again, I tell you, America's, like it or not, we're the leader of the free world, right? And right now we're not leading. And honestly, if you're in UK, France, Germany, Poland, Lithuania, and you're looking back at America, you say, who's in charge? You're probably a little nervous because the Pax Americana is what they've been depending on for the last 40, 50, 60 years, right? That's what kept them safe and at peace. The Pax Americana, not the Pax NATO, all right? So they're worried. They're really worried, and it has affected our alliances. One alliance that I mourn is India. We had a terrific, burgeoning new alliance with India going just a year and a half ago. I mean, I personally had breakfast with the foreign minister of India. This is the world's largest democracy and youngest democracy. We need India in the Indo-Pac. We're not going to win the Indo-Pac without, allying with India, and they feel like they've been completely jilted by this administration, and they have. They imposed new tariffs on them, for the love of God, so they're cozying up to Russia and China, with whom they actually have a hot shooting war going on their border. So that we have really destroyed some alliances around the world. Who's in charge up there? You read all the same things I do. It's the usual suspects. I don't have any insights you don't have on who's running the White House. The question of Biden and Trump, DeSantis and Trump. So I have a feeling that they get along very well still. I know that we see the press saying there's sparks flying, but I was actually with DeSantis just last week, and he was saying very warmly, had just gotten off the phone with Trump before I got in the car. So they work together well. I think they'll settle that between the two of them. I don't think they'll call either you or me and ask. I think that's two personalities that are perfectly comfortable working that out on their own. That's my best guess. Yes, sir.
Hey, Congressman, thanks for coming today. Kind of along the lines of the chip.
TSMC, yeah, okay.
Same concept on medicine. With COVID happening and everything, supply chain interruptions, a father with a daughter with type 1 diabetes depending on insulin to survive. That obviously.
I didn't plant this question. This is great.
That worried me. And are we doing other things as a nation to bring some things back here?
Thank you for that. So, you're talking about pharmaceuticals, if I may say, and the supply of pharmaceuticals in America, to America. Where were they made? China. Like 85% of our medications had substrates that started in China, maybe actually manufactured in China. So we recognized that we have to repatriate those supply chains, and the quickest one to repatriate is pharmaceuticals. So what were we lacking? APIs, advanced pharmaceutical ingredients, think active pharmaceutical ingredients. And in the Operation Warp Speed legislation, we funded 2 API plants to make API here, make substrate here in America. And I'm really proud to say that we have a brand new API plant in South Florida, 70,000 square feet, knocking out about 40 generic medications currently. And that's all just since that bill passed. And so we are making headway with drugs manufactured in America. Now, you have biologics, which are less dependent on the Chinese supply chains. Anyways, they're more complex. We tend to manufacture them here, or at least to invent them here. And we're reshoring or nearshoring. A lot of it's nearshoring. So they're doing it in Europe, UK, Ireland. The biologic, the more complicated medication, pharmaceuticals. But generics alone, just bringing the generics back here and the API to this country is really, really important, and we're making great headway with that. So the government actually put billions into funding those plants. And at least one of them is de novo in North Carolina. Another one is one we salvaged in West Virginia. They've been shut down. And another one is one we grew in South Florida. So I think there's a great news on that. And since you mentioned diabetes, I'm going to say Gleevec is a great model drug to look at. Gleevec is a wonderful, very effective drug in diabetes. If you're getting it now through your insurance company, likely you're not getting the brand name. If you're getting the brand name, it's $37,000 a month. I didn't make that right. $37,000 a month. You get the generic, it's $32,000 a month. All right? So I bet everybody here has heard of, he's telling me, let me finish this. Everybody's here heard of a guy named Mark Cuban, kind of controversial basketball team owner, right? He decided, all the other billionaires got all the space shots, and so he's going to make generic drugs and distribute them. So he got hold of Gleevec, and they're selling that for $40 a month. $40 a month, Gleevec. That's what happens when you get a little clarity on these things. Yeah, you're right. So there are some wonderful new news on generics, and I spend a lot of time on generic drugs. That's in my wheelhouse. Thanks a lot. You've been great. Thank you,
Thank you,
Pat.
Congressman. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask one question. Before we go, I got one last question for Dr. Dunn. We're assuming, but I want to make sure, are you running for re-election?
You better.
Landon told me to tell you that. I'm sorry. Yes, I am running.
All right, thank you. Well, you got my vote, and
That's what, oops, yeah, and that too.
well, thank you for coming here and reporting what's happening in D.C., but more importantly, Congressman, building that relationship with our organization and our members. So let's give the Congressman another round, please. Thank you.
I know that